Ah,
And with that, a lucky strike, we're gonna get started.
all right.
Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us for this afternoon's Working with Veterans virtual panel, organized in partnership by NorthSideWorks and Pittsburgh Hires Veterans. We're excited to have Pittsburgh Hires Veterans Executive Director Jack Lydon with us today, moderating, and I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists from Mascaro Construction, Rivers Casino, and Huntington Bank for their time and insights. Before we get started, hello, I'm Quinn Kirby at the Northside Chamber of Commerce. As manager of strategic initiatives here at the Chamber, I work heavily in the NorthSideWorks Workforce Development Initiative, and we have two main buckets of activity that we work in: collecting and sharing quality information to job seekers and employers, and creating connections to enhance events on the North Side. Regarding the latter, I am going to do a quick plug of the North Side Job Fair that is coming up April 26th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at PNC Park. If you are interested in getting involved, whether that is as a tabler or as a connector to individuals and job seekers on the North Side, please contact me at quinn@northsidechamberofcommerce.com. And today's agenda includes discussion regarding the benefits, challenges, and concerns regarding hiring the veteran and insights into retaining quality veteran talent. We have an hour for panel discussion and half an hour for Q&A. Please send any questions during the panel to the chat box, and I will bring them up as is appropriate. Once the panel is complete, we can all come off mute and chit chat and just have a good conversation together. I'll be sending a recording of the panel and a survey in post-event correspondence. Your feedback on today's discussion would be much appreciated. All right, Jack, take it away.
Sorry, I struggled to unmute myself after that. Thank you very much, Quinn. Um, I just want to put in a plug for Quinn and the North Shore Northside Chamber of Commerce real quickly before we get started. We have recently become a member of that chamber because they are such a great group of people, so friendly, so interested in the success of businesses on the North Side, North Shore, but we're not located there, and yet we are welcome with open arms. We love these guys. So way to go, Quinn. And so I am Jack Lydon, Executive Director of Pittsburgh Hires Veterans. Just want to tell you briefly a little bit about our organization. Our organization was kicked off about 8 years ago by a Vietnam veteran named Jack Wagner. Many of you may be familiar with him. He has a lengthy history in the political arena, but what he saw when he looked around a few years ago is the fact that there's a lot of veterans out there seeking employment and they could use some help. And it was as simple as that. He said, I need to do something about it. So he started this organization, Pittsburgh Hires Veterans. And his initial vision was to provide free one-on-one assistance to veterans to help them find the right employment for them. And that's what we do today. It's free, it's one-on-one. It's much easier, or I should say, it may be more efficient to work with people in groups, but it's much more effective to work with people one-on-one. Now, this it's great, it's really rewarding to be working with the veterans, but we can't do it without the employers. We actually act as a broker many times. Employers let us know what jobs they're looking to fill, and we look for the veterans to fill them. We provide all these services for free. Currently, we're working with 74 active job seeker veterans, and our employer network is about 500 employers. So a little bit more about that as we go, but we're really happy to be working with you employers. And I see more people logging in here as we go. This is just fantastic that there is so much interest here. I'd like to get started by introducing our three key employer panelists. We have three leaders out here who are our partners in our agencies. And I asked them to come forward and work with us to talk about the advantages of hiring veterans. What are some methods of successfully finding the right veterans? What are some techniques for retention? And I don't want this limited to these folks. We all bring a lot of skill, knowledge to the workforce. I've worked with several of you individually, and I know how professional you are. So please, as we go, if you have a question or a comment, I would encourage you to not only add something into the chat board, but maybe even just raise your hand. And if you have a comment, Quinn can tag you in here and make those comments. I'd like to get started, though, with Chris Eberlein. Chris is with Huntington Bank. And Chris, why don't you give us a little bit of insight into your professional experience and how you came to end up on this panel?
Yeah, Jack, I appreciate it. Thank you. So I've been in the banking world and in Pittsburgh my entire career. I've been working banking for 23 years, straight out of school. I've had the opportunity to work at Huntington for a total of 5 years. I was here previously, left for a bit, and came back. Just a background on Huntington Bank. We're a $189 billion asset bank. We're stretched across the Midwest, over 1,000 branches, actually located in 11 states. But here specifically in Pittsburgh, we've expanded quite a bit, opening new branches in the Pittsburgh market as well on the retail side, but also have different job capacities within our corporate center, but also some online jobs and things of that nature. But how did I get, one of the questions you asked, Jack, is how did I get involved? I think my partner is actually on the phone as well here, but Mark Corbin and I, who work here at Huntington, realized, and I met Mark about a year ago, realized that we did not have a local military resource group within Huntington Bank. And it's something that him and I have a passion for. I personally am not a veteran, but my son is in the military. So I had a feeling that I really want to get involved. I know how much of a struggle it has been for him to find employment outside of the duties that he has. He's actually deployed right now in Djibouti, Africa until the end of the year. But when he comes back, he's going to be looking for employment. So I know that the struggles he's going to face. But Mark and I started this resource group here. And the reason why we started the resource group within Huntington was not just to find veterans that are looking for jobs in banking, but how can I, in my professional services of 20 plus years, connect veterans with other people in my network, right? And that's what I love to do. If there's a job that you're specific to that you know that I might have somebody that I might have a relationship with, that's where I think us professionals and us veterans in this space can really help veterans finding jobs, Jack. So that is why I'm here. That's why I love working with Pittsburgh Hires Vets. My big thing for 2024 is to help both on finding veterans jobs, hopefully within Huntington, but not even just within Huntington, just with here in the local market. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of the panel, and I'm really excited to continue our work that we've already done here in the last couple months.
Thank you, Chris. And Chris and Huntington Bank have been such a great partner with us over the last several years. And I just look forward to working with you in Huntington going into the future. Allie is here representing Mascaro Construction. I just had the opportunity to meet her face to face at the Chamber Coffee and Contacts meeting last week. It was a pleasure. And Allie's the same question, a little bit about your background and how you came to land on our panel supporting veteran employment.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Allie Chornick. I work for Mascaro Construction right here on the north side. I am a human resources and workforce development manager and have been with Mascaro for 3 years now in June. So in my capacity, I'm responsible for all of our recruitment, onboarding, really just trying to make sure that we're spreading the message about just how awesome the career opportunities are within the construction industry. There is such a shortage of a skilled workforce to support those tenured, seasoned employees that have set their sights on retirement. So I'm fortunate enough that I get to go into schools and connect with people as young as 3rd grade elementary school, which is crazy that I recruit that young, but really, again, just trying to get in front of as many people as possible to show that there are opportunities, no matter what your background is, no matter what type of work you're looking to do, specifically within the construction industry. We've been fortunate enough to be really invested in supporting the acclimation and recruitment of our veterans. It's a cause that's very near and dear to our organization's heart. I'm excited to hopefully connect with some additional people about those opportunities. There's a lot of room for us to grow as far as our veteran workforce. It's small but mighty here, and that's not just professional support positions, but opportunities within the trades. A little bit more about Mascaro. We are a second generation family owned and operated general contractor, again, based here right on the north side. So it's been great to connect and meet everyone through opportunities like this. We're celebrating our 36th year, but have been a top workplace since 2016. We're also a signatory contractor with the local unions. So again, trying to get people to consider joining a trade through an apprenticeship program is something that we truly value. Again, being passionate about supporting our veterans, I would never say no to an opportunity like this. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Allie. And Brendan Cleaver is with Rivers Casino. I've had the opportunity to work alongside Brendan several times. He is a regular attender at our quarterly event that we call the Veterans Pathway to Employment. If any of you would like opportunity to participate in that in the future, we move from VFW to VFW to offer veterans the opportunity to sit right in front of people like you, talk about their job goals, talk about resumes that they have, practice interview skills, and maybe make the right connection right there on the spot for a new hire for your organization. Brendan, how are you today?
Good, Jack. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for inviting us to all the events, over the last, year and a half that I've been at the Rivers Casino. Each event I've been to, I've learned a little bit more about what you guys do. And I was excited today to join you and kind of go over what we have to offer. When I started here a year and a half ago, it became very apparent to me the Rivers Casino wants to help veterans. We have a program called Rivers Salutes that we're trying to recognize veterans that we have here on site with different pins, different announcements that go out on a quarterly basis. And I just think it's a great opportunity to kind of let people know what type of opportunities that we have here. We do not just have the gaming floor, but we also have, our corporate level structure upstairs. And we just have about 1,400 employees here and just a ton of opportunity. And I love coming out to your events. I meet a wide range of different people, different backgrounds. And I'm excited to, for today to kind of share, what we have to offer.
That is awesome, Brendan. Thank you very much. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that we have approximately 500 employers in our employer network. These are companies that have come to us at one time or another and said, hey, we would like to work with you to hire veterans. And we've been around the block a couple of times. We know that some companies are calling in because they just want to hire anybody. They are dying for finding people to come and work for their company, and we're just another resource. And I appreciate that. We're happy to have any company advertise their positions through us to veterans. However, there's a difference between our partners and those who are just looking for someone to hire. The people who are our partners in our network really seem to understand the benefit of hiring a veteran. And I'd like to explore that a little bit, starting with our panelists. What do you see as the benefits of hiring a veteran? And as we're working through this, if the rest of you want to throw something into the chat or add your comments, please feel free to do that.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the experience that they bring to the table and what they do for our country and for, on a day-to-day basis. I think they bring a certain skill set that you can't find maybe out of a college kid or a high school kid coming out. They have real world experience. I see that when I meet them at your events, Jack, and I just think, I think it's enough, especially when you hire veterans, to have people work alongside them and for them to share their story to different people. I just think you can't put a price tag on that. It really helps us drive, I would say morale around here. And I think, working with veteran groups and working with veterans is just a win-win for everyone.
Thanks, Brendan. Allie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the transferable skills that any veterans could bring to any organization or industry, specifically construction, we are fortunate enough that we've onboarded someone to a project management role within the last few months. And the skill set that they brought from collaboration, teamwork, dedication, working some of those long hours to ensure that something's not only done by its deadline, but done right and done well. I also have really paid attention to this act of service or servant leadership throughout someone's professional career. So as we onboard, as we recruit, as we retain our veteran population, it's almost like they've got this innate sense to kind of give back. So we've seen a lot of really fantastic qualities as far as mentorship, coaching, explaining things along the way that I think is just such a value add to any team, and even gives them that extra leg up, if you will, with peers, that they've got that sense of building teams and really kind of infusing it in all aspects of their relationships on site.
I love that, Allie. Chris, some people make the suggestion that veterans by their nature are rule followers rather than being creative. They're command followers and not free thinkers. What are your thoughts about that? What's been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, my experience specifically, I think, Jack, they're quick learners, right? They can adapt pretty quick to things. They can adapt in different environments and things of that nature. I think the other big thing that really pulls out for me is most of these veterans, most of them, not all, get leadership roles early in their 20s in the military, right? So they have that leadership experience already coming into a job. So they have a lot of that. And I think the big thing for employers as well is the loyalty factor, right? Trying to keep that individual on the job, showing up on time, leaving on time, right? And being there. I think that's really where the benefits come in. And I think the last one that we don't talk a lot about is stress management, how they can manage through a stressful environment. Listen, these men and women have been through stressful situations that I can only imagine what they've been through, and many of the people on the phone have been through. But be able to take that experience and bring it into the live job force, I think is tremendous. So I think that's a huge benefit of hiring a veteran.
That's excellent. What I am often encouraging employers to do is hire for potential and train for capacity. And it's kind of a hard sell a lot of times. I know employers, we're hiring somebody because we have a job that needs to be done. And it's tough to think long-term and to deal with the short-term priorities. But one of the things that I recognize is that veterans are learners. We thrive on working toward that next step, that next certification, that overcoming that next challenge. Do you all see it the same way? Are you seeing the same thing from the veterans that I see?
I 100% do, Jack. I think I see it not just there, but in my day-to-day role, and I didn't really talk about that in my background. I work with a lot of business customers as well, and some of those business customers are veterans. I can see it in them. I can see it in the business owner. I can see it in the employees that they hire. I can hear it in their voice. I can see how they respond when I need something. They're usually much quicker to get it than just a normal customer out there. So, yeah, I 100% see it in the banking industry.
Excellent. And yeah, I kind of see it the same way. And one of the other things that I recognize that maybe most employers don't is that there are ongoing training opportunities for veterans in the community that you can utilize. For instance, if you hire someone who has some IT skills, but might need a couple of certifications, or let's say you're considering hiring somebody, there are opportunities within the community. One is through Syracuse University, the Onward to Opportunity program, where veterans can acquire free certification and training to enhance themselves, enhance their capability within your organization. And it's just all value add, value add, value add. So, being learners and then being provided with the opportunity to learn really takes it to the next level. And one of the things that I haven't heard anybody mention is the just natural diversity of the veteran workforce. Brendan, what are your thoughts about that?
Sorry about that. No, absolutely. I mean, we have, diversity and inclusion. That's a big thing for us. When I go to your different events, and different veteran events, I see that firsthand, and it's awesome. It's awesome that I'm able to talk to people from different backgrounds, because that's what we have here. Out of our 1,400 employees, we have a very diverse group of people that work here, and we have a very diverse group of clientele as well. So again, like I said before, it's a win-win for both of us. But if we can give people an opportunity in some capacity to start working here, whatever type of background or nationality they have, is just a great thing for us. So, and I'm looking forward to continue working with you guys and continue coming to your events, and hopefully we see some more success over the next few months and years.
Yeah, excellent. Allie, what are your thoughts on the diversity that veterans bring to the workforce? Is this a valuable thing?
Oh, absolutely. We value diversity, and in full transparency, there's a shortage of diversity within the construction industry, in our trades, in our professional support departments. But the landscape of the industry is changing to reflect our world and our society today. It's great that Mascaro gets to partner with our trade organizations or different organizations throughout the community that do offer certain pre-apprenticeship programs to really kind of set a stage to make sure people feel included and welcomed if they may be representing a marginalized population. We really are working hard and diligently to ensure that our workforce is inclusive and supportive with women in construction. There have been fantastic acts put in place to make sure that we can support those that want to raise a family. In addition to, again, just having more diversity in our leadership positions. It's a slow moving needle here, but I think every bit of outreach can help to make sure people feel supported, but not only feel it, but know that they're wanted. They're wanted for the valuable insight that they bring, not just a number or a checkbox. There are so many opportunities and systems in place to support a diverse workforce. Again, it's slow and steady as far as diversifying that population, but love to see that more people are coming into the industry.
Thanks, Ellie. And we could probably, I'm sorry.
All good. If I may, Joseph Bodnar sent a chat saying PA CareerLink has programs to help with job seekers obtaining training and on-the-job training programs for employers that might help offset costs. Jack, I know that there's a work opportunity tax credit for employers. Can you or can any of the panelists talk about taking advantage of that?
I will touch on that briefly. And if any of the other participants want to clear that up a little bit. So Work Opportunity Tax Credit is a years-old program overseen, I guess, by the IRS, which credits employers with a number, it credits employers for hiring out of a vulnerable population. And included in that vulnerable population are veterans that meet specific criteria. And that tax credit, as I remember, can be up to $2,400. And it can be a valuable thing. What I've noticed is many employers have new employees complete Work Opportunity Tax Credit paperwork to see if their people volunteer. You don't have to screen. You just that is the screening method, and that's my understanding. There may be a bit more to that. Anybody else want to weigh in on any of the details there?
Yeah, when our employees fill out applications, our provider is Walton, and they will fill out that tax credit. It's not something that it's mandatory to fill out, but we do encourage to fill out when people come on site to apply directly in my office, then we do have them fill out that tax credit. But yeah, like you said, it's definitely, it can go up to $2,400 depending on the situation of that applicant. And we've been pushing that for the last year and a half since I've been here.
Very good. And as far as Joe Bodnar's comments, very valid, very solid. PA CareerLink has so many training opportunities. And I know, of course, there's criteria for qualification for all of those. But I also know that they work with employers to develop tailored training for people and organizations. So it's a great resource for sure. So panelists, you express the value of hiring a veteran. And I really appreciate that. I have talked to people in the past that think hiring the veteran is about pitying the veteran. It's about looking at somebody and saying, oh, those poor veterans, they need some help. And in my mind, it's like, hey, don't bother. We're not here for the pity. We're here because we bring value to the workforce. And if you don't recognize it, well, that's okay. We can get good employment someplace else. So I really appreciate you recognizing that veterans bring value to the workforce. Do you feel like you have all the veterans that you want employed, or do you want to increase your population? Go ahead, Allie. You smiled.
I am, because I would love more veterans because of their experience, because of those transferable skills that we talked about. It's interesting though, in some of my experiences, again, 3 years young in this particular industry and recruitment aspect, I'm still learning how to connect the dots on those transferable skills. As much as I'd love to say, I wish everyone would want to be a civil engineer, go into construction management, or join the trades, we're an organization, a big organization, local to Pittsburgh, that still leans on a ton of different positions to support our organization. So yes, construction company, that is who we are and what we do. I don't know that I would have pictured myself supporting the construction industry X amount of years ago, but have loved my journey here. I'd love to talk to more veterans about our opportunities in IT. We talked about technology briefly. Everything feels so technical when someone's coming out of the service that I'd love to leverage those skills more. Accounting, administrator roles, HR, there are so many different other avenues to support a large company like the panelists represent here today that may not be directly associated with that company's line of work. So just broadening the horizon, showing people the magnitude of opportunities, but also the way to climb and navigate the ladder. We talked about, veterans getting promoted, earning leadership titles very early on in their career. There are those opportunities for veterans within an organization, no matter the size, small, mid-size, large company. I'd love to continue recruiting our veterans and onboarding them so that we are able to retain them for the future of the company.
Allie mentioned the challenge with clarifying or understanding or identifying transferable skills. And that is always a challenge. I work with a lot of veterans to write those resumes to help them tweak those in and change the acronyms into something that makes sense to an HR person, a recruiter, an employer. Chris, do you have any thoughts on, how do we better deal with that in the civilian world, understanding what a veteran specifically is bringing into your company?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's identifying where maybe some of those skill gaps are. I think some of those skills can be taught. Some of the skills, especially when you look at a financial services industry. And I think people think of banks are just, well, we have these banking jobs. I mean, a bank is more than just a retail bank job. We have facilities, services, we have everything else involved in banking that's there. So I think it's really sitting down, and I had the opportunity, Jack, to join your team at the last hiring event, and that was the first one that I was able to get to. And one of the things that I saw on the resumes, I think some of the veterans weren't narrowed in on what they wanted to do. I feel like they all thought that, hey, I'm here, I have all these employers here, but none of them really could sit there and say, this is a job I specifically want. This is what I want to do, and narrow it down. So I think a lot of the times it's a conversation that you have to have. And as an HR, and I'm not an HR person, I know there's some HR people on the phone. I think having that conversation and making sure that they're narrowed down on what they want to do, and then identify maybe where some of those skill gaps are. here's the thing though, are they really gaps, or do they just not understand what that skill entails, right? So I don't think it's a gap. I hate to use that word because I don't think it is.
Mhm.
My co-lead that I work here with the bank came from was an interrogator. He did interrogation in the military. That's a fantastic transition into banking in the sense of having to deal with selling loans and selling deposits and selling other things, right? If you can interrogate people, it probably is going to transition well. So
I
it
don't think
doesn't
I want
always
him
work
as my
out that
loan
way.
officer.
Exactly, right? So and I know Mark is out there and he could probably attest to it. But I mean that's a fantastic transition from what he's doing to what he's doing now. It's not always the case, but I don't think it's a gap. I think you just have to understand where that skill set is, and then how do we adjust that? So
Very cool. Some of the employers who we work with who are very aggressive at hiring veterans, and a lot of these are larger companies with lots of open positions, but what we find is helpful in successfully recruiting is having a veteran in the recruiting process. Brendan, do you think that's of value? Does Rivers have, is this a thing? Is this work for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We actually have an offer out to a generalist who is being onboarded at the moment that has a military background. And
Nice.
that's part of the reason. Well, I mean, just to your point, I think, when we bring veterans in, when we're talking about gaps, or do I qualify for this position, or is this position right for me? I think that person could obviously, I don't want to say talk, but relate to the candidate a little bit better than maybe one of us. But when we talked about, transferable skill sets, every industry is different. And I think how things are moving anyway, you're going to have to start hiring transferable skill sets. And for here, I have more conversations with people about, hey, this is a casino. You don't have any casino experience, but you've worked in this industry. I can definitely see you working in this industry. I've hired an art student to be a HR coordinator because she just came in and interviewed well. So I think it's just, making sure that the veterans are prepared for the interview, making sure that they can share their experience and share what they bring to the table. If they have those leadership qualities, or whatever their strong skills, making sure that they're able to talk about that to different employees, different HR folks. So for me, it's, to have a guy come in that has that experience is huge for us. But also, I think getting the veterans here and helping them along their way and showing a career path and showing, a progression in their job is huge for us, because we have that. We do a lot of internal hires, and I try to talk to that about at different events, is that once you get in here every 6 months, you can move up and you can kind of go into different departments. And for the Rivers is great at kind of, developing candidates in their role, and then giving them the opportunity to kind of, expand their career a little bit.
Very cool. I'd like to throw a question out to the group. I hate to call it a trivia question, but it kind of is. So take a second and consider, what percentage of the adult population in America do you believe has a military background, has served in the United States military? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, seeing a lot of variation. And literally everybody is guessing high. Even, let's see, Pesha Ellison said 1%. It's actually a half of 1%. So a half of 1% of the population has a military background, which means that, number one, finding a veteran to serve in your HR area will put you far ahead in experience level of understanding a veteran and what they bring to the table than any other organization that doesn't. One of the big challenges in recruiting is that it's a civilian workforce that's typically used to recruiting a civilian workforce. And it's just really difficult to put those transferable skills into language that's understandable. An individual, well, let's do this. Allie, why don't you play this one off? If someone comes and applies to a job with you whose job in the United States military was a sniper, can you imagine the transferable skills that he would not be able to identify to you?
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure. Yeah, that would be difficult to try to figure out those skills if it's not directly related on a resume, or if there's not something common that I'm familiar with from like a training or background perspective.
Mm-hmm. But if you consider the nature of the job, certainly there's going to be patience, craftiness, fitness, dedication, motivation, tenacity. I mean, there's going to be a lot of pieces there, aside from the mechanical ability of maintaining weapons and, all these different pieces that the veteran is not likely to come up with. But we kind of rely on the recruiters and the HR folks to look at that and say, oh, this guy brings more than even he recognizes, or she. I'm sorry, I keep using the male pronoun. And yeah, there's a lot of pieces there, and we really in my role as Pittsburgh Hires Veterans, we really hope that the employers will take an extra minute to consider what they're really looking at. We do get to touch a lot of resumes and help with that process, but there's a lot that we don't touch, and we really hope that you all will take a second look and not just disqualify somebody because they don't have the specific experience that you're hoping for. Recognize that there is potential and success in this individual's future if given the opportunity.
And Jack, I just want to add, you just said it. I'm sorry, I just want to add to that is that you just said it, like a resume can only say so much, right? A resume can only give you a glimpse of it. It's when you meet that individual in person, that's the biggest thing that I can say is take the time to really understand that. When you say this word sniper, right? They didn't just jump into the military and become a sniper. They had to work their way through a process to get to being a sniper, right? So those skills transitioned all the way through to get there. You can't spell that out on a resume, nor would you put it on a resume. So you have to get deeper than that. So I just wanted to comment there. You're absolutely correct.
And along the same lines, what kind of assumptions do you think a purely civilian experienced recruiter might believe about a combat veteran? What we see is that some of these folks make assumptions of, well, if they were a combat veteran or they served in the theater, then they're going to have post-traumatic stress. And I'm going to have to deal with this disorder. They may be bringing significant mental health issues or barriers. And none of these things are really true, but without that background in military experience, a lot of these beliefs just linger out there. The reality is a combat veteran does not have significantly more post-traumatic stress than the average population. We all go through a lot of things. This is just a part of life. And for the most part, I think somewhere around 15% of veterans have some type of service-connected disability, but mostly they're physical, muscular. As a Marine, and when I speak with a Marine, I'm not a Marine, by the way, and when I speak with a Marine who has served any amount of time, I fully expect that they have service-connected disabilities. They've got knee issue, hip issues, ankle issues. They've been carrying some packs. They've been doing some things. But does that impact their ability to do 90% of the jobs that are out there? Not at all. So some of these unfounded assumptions can cause people to be overlooked that really should be considered a little bit further.
When it comes to the reasonable accommodations with the physical disabilities or the physical approaches, are there any suggestions to assisting or accommodating in that way?
And I can talk a little bit about that. So obviously there are some aspects of the construction industry that do require a lot of manual labor. It's hard work in all kinds of conditions. We've talked about Pittsburgh weather, you see all different seasons within a week. We do ask if people who will be joining our trades have any particular limitations. We encourage all of our applicants for any position to for the EEOC to disclose if they have anything, any specific requirements or any needs. We certainly do not discriminate on anything like that, but with regards to the mental health component of veterans, the construction industry has a very high suicide rate. So I could not agree with you more, Jack, that is an unfortunate stereotype for veterans that, they all come with some serious mental health issues or that particular stigma. From Mascaro, from our health and safety committee, we are so invested in the mental well-being for all of our staff members, for all of our potential staff members, regardless of their background. We have partnered with local organization, Master Builders Association, the AGC, to have a Yin's Good campaign to really kind of debunk that stigma around mental health. Again, it's a predominantly male industry. So whatever we can do to overcome it, make sure people know that they're supported. Mental well-being is so very important to us and to our industry. We want to reduce that suicide number. And then for the any potential physical limitations, there are opportunities in our industry that do not require people to be involved in very exhaustive manual labor. Yes, that's a large majority of them, but we always work to honor any kind of reasonable accommodation for our people.
And so I don't claim to be the knowledgeable one on reasonable accommodation. I have a little bit of knowledge about it, but do any of you care to address how simple reasonable accommodation can be to allowing a veteran with some type of physical disability to be successful? Brendan, your microphone is muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, for just a quick example for our dealers that are on the floor, if someone needs to sit down, we provide them a chair. And that's a reasonable accommodation for somebody that is usually on their feet for a long period of time. So that's just one example, but for any position, kind of like Ali said, I think the casino is a little bit different than construction, as we can provide reasonable accommodations for really a lot of our positions. So I know we do that not just for veterans, but for a whole group of people that we have currently on site. Going back to, helping people with, disabilities, not just physical, but mental as well. We also have a team member assistance program. It concentrates on substance abuse, marital, family difficulties, financial, legal problems, emotional issues. That's provided to all of our, all of our associates. Any team member can reach out at any given point. So that's part of our benefit package, part of our MetLife benefit package that we offer for anybody that's coming on site. So if you have a veteran that's in trouble, that comes up to HR, we have people to reach out, or we have folks that they can reach out to, and we provide assistance on site at any given point, 24 hours a day. So it's just part of what we do here. But from the reasonable accommodation standpoint, I think we're always looking at that, especially for a veteran that is looking to get into some sort of position here. We're going to look at that position, make sure it makes sense, and then obviously go on from there.
Excellent. Thanks, Brendan.
Yep.
Hey, my next question for you is this. What percentage of veterans do you believe leave their first job after leaving the military within the first year? So what percentage of veterans leave their first job within the first year of exit? Chad guesses 15%. Chris is at 5%. Joe is at 80%. And it looks like the right answer is identified by Isabella at 50%. Half of veterans leave their first job within the first year of separating from the military. Is that good for your business? What do you think, Chris?
No, I mean, it's obviously we just talked about that. And I think in my opening, I talked about how do you retain the talent, right? So I think what that says, Jack, is our organization companies trained to handle and hire vets. I think there's some internal talk that needs to happen within companies to understand what that looks like. So no, I don't think that's a good sign.
Right. And I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little earlier, is that half of 1% of all your managers have served in the military. They really don't know what that culture looks like, what the expectations are. You know, one of the challenges I have when I'm helping a veteran write their resume is when let's say a 25-year-old individual had the responsibility for managing an equipment account worth $13 million. And I tell him or her, I say, you know what? I get it. I know what military equipment costs. I know what your responsibility level was. But if we put this on your resume, you're not going to be believed, because you're a young guy with more responsibility than most people in the civilian world will have until they have reached a significant level of responsibility. During one of my periods of military service, I was responsible for managing and maintaining an aircraft worth $179 million. I had me and my 5 people. That's what we did. And I put that on a resume, and people look like me like I was a lying fool, right? They don't believe that. It's the truth. So, you know, recognizing that we actually dumbed down some of the resumes to make them more believable to you. Do you think that's reasonable?
I hate to hear that. I really do, because it just goes to show some of the earlier conversations what a disconnect there can be between civilian and a veteran having that experience. I'm a numbers person when I'm looking at resumes. Whenever candidates can quantify something, like those are big numbers, I like that. That shows me a great deal of responsibility. But at times I will say you're looking through so many resumes, you're looking at so many things. It's hard when you're trying to fill roles and maybe don't understand the caliber of what someone's done. I hate to hear that someone reduces that, but if it helps them get into an interview or an opportunity to move forward in the process, I understand it to an extent.
And since we are kind of drifting down on time here a little bit, let me kind of ask a more general question. As far as retaining veterans in the workforce, to keep those veterans longer than that first year, what are some techniques? What are some policies, procedures? How do you keep veterans in the service? What have you found to be successful?
Jack, I mentioned, you know, when I first spoke, that we do a river salutes. So anybody on site that you know, has any type of military experience, we recognize that. We give out shirts, different pins, not just to people that are working here, but also people that visit our site. So I think the acknowledgement and you know sending an email out to the whole staff and letting them know, hey, this person that's working next to you is a veteran. You know, go up to him and thank him for his service, type of thing. I see, you know, those different emails that come through, and I know, you know, several veterans that work here on site. So I think the acknowledgement and making sure that they're, you know, everybody knows who they're working next to is important. Going back to your 50% thing, I definitely would encourage or talk to veterans who, you know, maybe leave the workforce before a year that, hey man, it's not a bad thing. Maybe that wasn't the right spot for you. In the hospitality world, I wish everybody stayed a year. They don't. If a veteran tries his hand in, you know, hospitality, it's not the right spot for him. It's not necessarily a horrible thing that they moved on to a next position. So 50% to me is not necessarily saying, well, he's not a fit anywhere. It's maybe saying he hasn't landed in the right spot for himself, and he's trying to figure it out with that different background that he's coming from. So I maybe that's a good talking point for me at one of your next you know, sessions. But I would encourage everybody to, you know, talk to a veteran and say, hey, you've worked a couple different spots, you haven't found your way. Let's talk about some other opportunities for you and see if we can get you on the right path in your next position. But yeah, again, just acknowledging that the veterans are on site is a huge thing for us, and we push that every year here.
Nice. Hey, Ali, you mentioned the importance in the construction industry of teamwork. Do you think that requirement for teamwork actually kind of ties the veteran in better to the group? Do you think that is helping retaining veterans?
Oh, absolutely. That notion is ingrained in anybody that we speak to about the organization and the industry. No matter what role or position you have, you're a part of a team. From payroll, accounting, civil engineers, laborers, all of the different trades and specialties we have here are part of a team. Now, we stress that team framework from the time someone joins our organization, and we've got managers that serve in a coaching capacity, as well as the HR team that does do frequent check-ins with new hires to make sure, hey, while we may not be right alongside you with the job that you're doing right now, we're here, we care. Where can we fill in the gap? Where can we get you connected to resources within our organization? But that notion of us wanting them to continue to be a part of our team is genuine and infused in every aspect of our onboarding and continuing retention efforts with them.
Nice. And I think just being part of a team, because that's what veterans are used to. Very few things in the military are an individual endeavor. Just about everything is a team, a group, a bunch of people working together to get that job done. Chris, I'm going to bounce this one off of you. One of the things that really frustrated me hugely when I left the military and transitioned into the civilian workforce was the lack of formal dedicated training to help a person be successful in the new role. Now, I know that doesn't exist in every location. I mean, some companies are better than others, but do you think that plays a role?
Oh, I'm sure it does. I mean, I can speak, you know, about banking in general. I mean, I had no banking experience when I got into it. I was trained, I learned from my peers and worked my way through the process here over the last 20 plus years. But, you know, I think training has something to do with it. I think the training up front, but I think it's also getting back to what Brennan was talking about is doing check-ins with that individual to make sure that the training's going well. You can't just leave them out on an island and just say, do it, you're going to figure it out. I think you've got to have those basic check-ins as employers are looking to hire more veterans, to think outside the box on how am I checking in with this person weekly, monthly, whatever you set it up to be, Jack. I think that's there, but no, I don't. I think every job is different, right? You know, I can say specifically for the financial services industry, you would be trained. I sometimes say overtrained to the point where they're going to train you so much, but you also have to remember a lot of training today post-COVID is online as well. So it's a lot different for people being hired today than it was prior to 2020. A lot of more in-person was happening then. So then you have to think outside the box is how does does this person know how to use the computer? Are they going to pay attention to when it's on the computer, or are they more of a hands-on type person? So I think employers have to start thinking outside the box on what that looks like.
I like it. I have one more point I'd like to make before we shift. A military member, when they're serving, they may have a job driving a tank or fixing an aircraft or working in linen exchange. I mean, there's a lot of different roles and responsibilities in the military, but always there's this one overreaching concept and mission. Everything we do is to defend the United States against all enemies, both foreign and abroad, and local and abroad. And, that's what we do. However, when a veteran rolls into a civilian position, I'm not so sure that the big picture is always translated to them where they know, what do I actually accomplish here? Do you think it's important to help a new employee, whether it's a veteran or not, quite frankly, but veterans kind of expect to have a communication explaining, this is what we actually exist for. This is what we bring to humanity, and this is what you're a piece of. This is bigger than you, bigger than me. This is us working together to accomplish something significant. I think we miss that a lot. What do you guys think? Go ahead, Allie.
Yeah, I agree. It's a shame, but we're working really hard as an organization to make sure that we can continue to, support that development through these retention, the check-ins that we're doing, the trainings that we're offering. We don't want to lose sight of it, but we also like to create a space for our new hires to make sure that they feel comfortable asking questions if things aren't fitting, if things don't feel like they're right, if they need the resources. Being intentional about those conversations to ensure that people are set up for success and thriving is something that we don't take lightly.
Nice. Okay. So let's go ahead and shift it back to Quinn. And Quinn, you go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So this has been wonderful so far. We have one question in the chat, and if y'all would like to come off of mute and have a full discussion, feel free. We'd love to have you. The question that we have from Isabella Maza is, how can we best find those 200,000 veterans? I would say, first of all, Pittsburgh Hires Veterans is a great resource. Jack, if you can talk a little bit more about where folks can find the job board through Pittsburgh Hires Veterans and other places folks can find the 200,000 vets.
And Isabella, that is a fantastic question. There are many ways to do that. So as Quinn mentions, if you want to connect with 74 of them today, I've got 74. And those are 74 veterans who are actively looking for work. We actually have another 100 or so that have reached out to us recently and said, I'd like to find a job, but then they kind of disappear. We have their email address, we reach out, but there's only so much you can do. So it's a good number of folks. But of course, we're not the only game in town. Is Joe Bodnar still on the call here? Yeah, he's still logged in. Joe is a veterans rep with the PA Career Link. He has a partner there named named Jeff. And they work directly with veterans who come into the Career Link looking for employment opportunities. They do the same type of work. They have a couple different limitations, but they also have a bunch more resources available. So the PA Career Link is also a good opportunity. And then, this kind of expands out. If you are a federal contractor, you're expected to go looking in different places for, not only veterans, but also other specific breakouts of individuals, and there are organizations out there that help with that, and typically you pay to be a part of that network, and I don't subscribe to those, so I'm not exactly sure what they are. Any Brendan, you have any thoughts on that?
You said subscribe to networks?
Yeah, there are some networks that provide that assist employers with getting job leads out to different populations of people. I thought that you indicated that you were familiar with that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton of different groups. So we have an orientation class every 2 weeks where we provide a list of all the applicants of all the current hires of, I mean, we have literally hundreds of people or hundreds of organizations that we work with, including, you know, a couple people on here as well. And we're trying to add to that, you know, all the time. So if anybody has any suggestions, we're always open to, you know, working with different groups and, you know, different people, different individuals that are in the community. So I know just recently, I know Ramon is a big part of that. I think he's on the call as well. But we do a lot of outreach in the community. And, you know, I know Ramon is working with the mayor's office and, you know, different groups in the city. So, but we're always open to exploring new options and, you know, seeing if we can partner with anybody else.
Excellent. Jana also mentions Wounded Warriors Project as a organization that can connect an employer with veterans. Jana, thank you very much. Joe Bodnar would like to make a brief introduction, I guess, to PA CareerLink. Joe, can you unmute yourself, or do you need, yeah, you're good. Joe, you're on. Joe, are you there?
We're struggling to hear you through your mic. Oh.
Is that better?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I unplugged it and plugged it back in. Okay. So, and Jack, I'm gonna put you on the spot, but don't worry about it because everybody makes the same mistake, even the ones that I work with, and they still do it. So my position is I work with employers promoting the hiring of veterans. I don't actually work directly with the veterans. I can work indirectly for them if they apply for a company position, and they send a resume in. I can reach out to that company on their behalf, kind of try to get a boost on that resume to get looked at. Jeff does work with veterans, but he works with specific veterans that meet certain criteria. So not every veteran. And that is what the veteran staff is for the PA CareerLink. However, our career advisors can work with anybody, including veterans. So we kind of rely on them also. And then also, somebody asked about how do we find the 200,000? So on PA CareerLink, if you're registered on PA CareerLink, you post a job on PA CareerLink, you can then search the PA CareerLink candidates, you know, who might be possible applicants for your positions, and you can reach out to them instead of waiting for them to reach out to you. And when you do that, you can also filter to pull up veteran candidates specifically. So again, if you need any assistance, please reach out to me. Again, if it's not my role, I'll get you connected with the people at the PA CareerLink that do deal with that. And we, you know, we can, you know, hopefully help you with any issues you have.
Thank you, Joe. That's excellent advice. And I have forgotten that you guys have the veteran flag on your registrant. So that's excellent. That's a good way to find veterans. And, you know, what's ideal about that is that in order for someone who lost their job to register for unemployment compensation, they have to register with PA CareerLink. When a veteran registers with PA CareerLink, they identify that they're a veteran. So that's too easy. If you want to find local veterans, sign up with PA CareerLink, post a job, and go at it. Very good.
Oh,
Alrighty.
one other quick thing. Jack just popped it in my head. So, and it's something that I learned when I started working here. If you want to find veterans, I bet you have some working for you that you don't know about, because a lot of veterans will not say they were veterans. If you ask them, are you a veteran? They won't say they are, especially if they were peacetime, like my generation was. They just feel like we didn't serve in combat. We really ask the question this way: have you ever served in the military? Because then they will most likely say, yes, I was, you know, a truck driver in the Army, or you know, I worked a mechanic on helicopters. So if you phrase it that way, I'll bet you find a lot more veterans than you thought you had.
And that's a great point, Joe. I've experienced that myself. So if you are surveying your workforce to identify veterans, better way to ask that question is, have you ever served in the military? You'll be surprised at the difference in the responses.
Alrighty,
Back
folks.
to you, Quinn.
Thank you for that, Jack. Thank you for that, Joe. Do we have any other questions from the audience? If not,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up everything, but I do have
go
a
for it,
question
Joe.
I do have a question for the employers on here. Can you talk about your veteran resource groups and how they, if you have one, and how they function?
Joe, I can speak, specifically for us. We've had veteran resource groups within our company, Huntington, for 20 plus years. Locally here in Pittsburgh, and Mark, I know you're on the phone too, and you can come off mute. We didn't have one. We didn't have a resource group within the bank to do it, and I was able and lucky enough to meet Mark, who I also call a friend, was able to actually learn with him on how we get this started. But Mark, maybe you could talk a little bit about the resource group we have here at Huntington. Oh, we can't hear you either. So your volume, you might not be a mute issue, it might be an audio issue. But I'll keep speaking unless you were able to chime in. But Joe, we started the resource group here that does a couple different things to work with organizations. Oh, you're in, Mark. Go ahead.
Sorry, one of the things about being a veteran, you got to learn how to use computers. So when we started our veterans group here in Western PA, Huntington had a national presence as far as military resource groups. But from a lens of a veteran, the biggest thing that I wanted to impact, because of what my personal struggle was coming out from a transitionary standpoint, was that I was a U.S. Army interrogator. That didn't really translate very well. You couldn't look on LinkedIn and find somebody looking for an interrogator anywhere in Western Pennsylvania, right? So one of the biggest cornerstones that we wanted to accomplish here in Western PA was trying to bridge that gap and help veterans get jobs with Huntington. A lot of our predecessors, they were doing more like the flag raising ceremonies and stuff, which was great. We had one, Jack came out to it. But really, truly, it's what are we doing to help the veterans of today? And that's kind of where our focus is. And that's why Chris is on this call today, and I'm sitting in on it too, is that we want to be a part of actively helping. Truly, the first 90 days of a transition of a veteran from active service to civilian world is a critical component, because they're changing their lives completely. There was that statistic you guys were talking about earlier, about 50% leave the job within a year. I could totally see that, just because of the fact that, you have these high levels of responsibility, and then all of a sudden now you're in the working civilian world, and you can't really translate a lot of that. And a lot of them, sometimes, frankly, a lot of hiring managers don't frankly believe you of that scope of responsibility or how you translate it. So that's for Veteran Resource Group. That's what we do. We also connect to veterans internally in our group to try to help them out and give them resources for Veterans Affairs, PTSD, stress stuff, all kinds of stuff like that. But I hope that answered your question.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Mark. Any questions from the group? Feel free to unmute.
While people are considering whether or not they want to throw their final question out there, I would like to share some resources for you all if you want to become better at this, quite frankly. The first organizational help I would like to share is the Society for Human Resources Veterans at Work certification. You don't need to be a member of SHRM to participate in this, but if you are, you can get whatever the credits are that you require on a regular basis. And that program just walks through a lot of expectations of veterans, tips and pointers on recruiting and retention. And I really encourage you to take a look at that. Another resource I'd suggest is called Psych Armor. And I'll put these links in the chat. And there's several resources and training opportunities within Psych Armor at getting better at recruiting and retaining your workforce. And the third one I want to point out to you is really interesting. It's called Military Friendly Employer. And it is administered by Victory Publishing, who publishes the GI Jobs magazine. And what they provide is a survey that a company can take and assess themselves as far as just how effectively they manage their military workforce, what practices they have in place, not only to support the military veteran, but also the family. Because a military member doesn't serve alone, the family serves also. And it's really interesting even if you just use the survey as a buffet of potential items that you can take to enhance your organization. I think that something that you might find very useful. Joe Bodnar points out in the chat that victory is spelled with a Q and not VIC. But also, I will put these links in the chat for you. Please take a look at these and see if they can be helpful to your organization in recruiting and retaining.
And I will also collect these links and resources from Jack. So as well as in the chat, they'll be in the follow-up email following this event. Again, the recording will be available to all of you once I figure out how to do that, along with a survey on your experience here. Thank you so much for attending. Jack, Allie, Brendan, Chris, Mark, Joseph, everyone, thank you so much for your participation. And yeah, this was wonderful. Jack, any last thoughts? Oh, Jonah, yeah.
Hi, sorry, I could
good.
not find the raise hand feature. I wanted to ask a quick question. I see that you have AI features enabled, and I'm wondering, it looks like it does a transcript of some sort, and I'm wondering if there's a way to access that. So I'm visually impaired and use a screen reader. I'm just wondering if you know of any way that I can access that as well. And this was very informative. Thank you so much.
For sure. Glad to hear it. And yes, from my experience, I believe the AI bot kind of categorizes things that were discussed. So I'm not sure if it's a full transcript, but I will check that, note that, and send whatever it gives me your way.
That would be phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciated the opportunity to attend, and I actually know some people on this panel.
All right.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Jonah.
Thanks, folks. We will be in touch. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully it gets warmer again.
Hey, thanks all for participating and being devoted to Hire That Veteran. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jack. Bye.
Have a good one.